There are a tremendous amount of Sony ponies out there trying to nail me to the proverbial cross of you were wrong and we were right. Colin Moriarty owned you, and now we have proof of it because Sony's CFO had come forward and said that Ghost of Yotei is officially a better game to Sony than Ghost of Tsushima. Of course, paraphrasing, which we'll get into here. And what is very important is they're paraphrasing something that is carefully curated to a particular angle to make it seem like something might be different than what it really is. And all I'm arguing over here is if the game really is better than Tsushima selling wise and it's actually blowing doors and breaking all the expectations that Sony had, if that really is the case, why don't they just tell people what the sales numbers are for it? It's a little bit strange to use all these very carefully curated words to form a sentence without saying, yeah, these are the sales of it and it's blowing doors. We're doing great. Don't you think that's a little bit suspicious? Wouldn't you want more transparency from a company? I don't care what side of the fence you're on with this. Either way, wouldn't you want them to tell you what the sales numbers are? Now, if you want me to be wrong, of course you don't want them to say it because you know that would disprove your argument, because that is the reason why they're not saying it. I said on X, Sony CFO Lin Tao delicately danced through the words in an attempt to convince shareholders that they have a winner on their hands. Quote, Ghost of Yotei, a tentpole title we released in October. Okay, this is very important. Listen to the wording here. Exceeded the sales of the previous title in the same period of time. Same period of time for what? Like the launch window? The up until right now, the entire quarter? Like what period of time are you referencing here? Because I even covered this saying, yes, at the current time when it first launched, it did bump ahead of Ghost of Tsushima. But then I even gave this chart saying, here's what it is going to do based off the projections, based off of the tailwind it had behind it that Ghost of Yotei did not have. And this is, I posted this November 10th of 2025, and I said, Sony announces Ghost of Yotei sales numbers. It sold 3.3 million units worldwide in the first 32 days. For a sequel, it pales in comparison to Tsushima, and Sony can't be happy with this. Here's a visual comparison I made based on the milestones from Ghost of Tsushima. And I went over this before, and at this point right here, this is, everyone was zooming in on this and saying, your chart is pathetic because it disproves what you're saying. Look at this. Ghost of Yotei is already outselling it in the first 28 days. And it's like, well, with that being the case, how could you even make an argument of this game is doing worse than Ghost of Tsushima? To which I reply, okay, if that's the case, why don't they tell us where it is right now? How many sales does it have right now? Why are they being so secretive about it? And here's the other argument I'd put forward. Even if it's at the same exact amount, that is typically, for most companies out there, AAA, if you have a sequel to a game, you don't create it with the intention of selling just as many copies as the last one. That is like below what your expectations should be. The whole point of a sequel is you put more time, more money, more effort. The already has the brand recognition behind it. And that is when it blows doors. This did not do that. And Sony refuses to tell people how many it sold because they know as soon as they do that, they're going to say, oh, so it's doing negligible. It's doing worse than Tsushima grand scheme, but negligible long-term. And this is considered a tentpole success for you. I got so many questions. And then they go on to say, and significantly contributed to the financial results of the quarter, which again means nothing. What other games did they put out of the quarter? That is such a Circana line to be like, yeah, that's painting the brightest picture, the most amazing, beautiful picture with these words, significantly contributed to the financial results of the quarter. Compared to what? What else came out? That doesn't mean anything. How many did you sell? Why can't you just say that? I said, but hold on there just a second. Still no actual sales numbers. And they continue to refuse to release anything tangible. Given how narrowly her statement is framed, There's no way this came anywhere close to meeting internal expectations at Sony Interactive. It reeks of positioning, not transparency. You know what everyone should be asking for in the game industry is more transparency. If a studio is afraid to tell you information about the game sales, that means they're not confident with the sales of the game. 100%. You're the customer. Why can't they tell you how many it sold? Shouldn't you be like stamping it on the boxes? Million seller, 3 million seller, 5 million seller? Why aren't you telling people? It's a little bit curious, don't you think? Just imagine how much more it would have sold if they had stuck with Jin and delivered a direct sequel to Ghost of Tsushima instead of pivoting to Ghost of Yotei. And this was the biggest argument I had when I was talking to Colin Moriarty. It's like, the game's doing fine, man. It's doing better than Tsushima and XYZ and the other thing. The unquantifiable, intangible of you'll never know what Ghost of Tsushima 2 would have sold because it doesn't exist. But I can guarantee you, whatever this game sold, Tsushima 2 would have outpaced it by double. And I know deep down, Sony of Japan knows that. And internally, they are pissed about this. Believe me, I don't give a shit what they're trying to tell the public. Like, oh, it's a tentpole game, and it was really good for our quarter when we had really nothing else. But it did good for us. I said, it's hard to ignore that the head of Sucker Punch Productions conveniently departed recently. This is the other thing. And I covered this at the same time when all this was going down. Sony of Japan allegedly was upset at the results internally of this game. And then conveniently, coincidentally, about a month later, Brian Fleming, the founder of Sucker Punch Studios, says, so what do you think I should do next? That's the big question. Because after 28 absolutely life-changing years at the helm of Sucker Punch, I've decided it's time to shake up the snow globe. My ass, you do. If everything was going great there, you'd stay there. Why? After 28 years, why would you leave unless it's to retire and go fishing? You want to stay in the industry and start something all over again somewhere else? That tells me that you got pushed out. And this is a conveniently aligned conversation that you've had with Sony to make it seem like this was your decision to leave just to go out and start doing the same thing again somewhere else. Again, very curious, very curious. Pay attention and notice how much room for interpretation is baked into the statement from her. It avoids giving any concrete context or scale at all. All too convenient. But don't worry, Sony ponies will lap this up like some sort of massive own. And I have already seen that across the board where people are tagging me all day today and going nuts on me. But before I even go to those, I want to give props to IGN. No, mark this down. Count on one hand how many times I say this. They said Sony says Ghost of Yotei, quote, exceeded the sales of Ghost of Tsushima in the same period of time and, quote, significantly contributed to its financial results. And if you go through this and read what they said, this is what I give them credit for. At least they were honest and said, the statement here is a little vague. Like keywords, they didn't actually say anything. They said a whole bunch of shit without actually saying anything. And the Sony ponies are lapping it up, even though today I was completely vindicated by it. I said, today I've been vindicated on my stance that Ghost of Yotei was indeed a failure relative to Tsushima. And Sony has to run damage control, pretending it's fine, but doesn't actually give sales numbers to prove it. We had many people going at me. Let's start with David Jaffe. People have every right to hate and love what they love. But man, the more I play this gem of a game, the more I feel sad for those who follow the man-child that is Smash JT. They are missing out on a fucking wonderful action adventure that raises the bar. It's so wonderful. Hey, David, from me to you, I am so happy you are enjoying your time with this game. As I've said to everyone that's played this game, I'm glad you like it. Personally, I do not want to participate in this. I don't like the direction they took it. And as a customer, I have that right to not open my wallet and buy the game. I'm not telling anyone not to buy it. I'm telling people my feelings on the situation and why I feel like it fell short of expectations at Sony. Ergo, it's a flop from that. This game should have been doing at least double, at least from Tsushima. But it can't even go past what Tsushima's doing, even though the word wizards are like, oh, it's totally performing better than Tsushima. How? What are the numbers? Tell us how many it sold. Why can't you do that? Very strange. Very strange. To which I screenshot this because this was shared with me privately because I didn't even see it because I'm blocked by David Jaffe, the creator of God of War and Twisted Metal. And I said, tags me to call me out, has me blocked. Classic Jaffe. We got Jay Hooft, former friend of the channel that just randomly hates me for some reason. Not sure why Smash JT doesn't just take the loss. Oh yeah, it's a giant grift for money. What have I said that is not true? Where is the grift here? All it is Sony fanboys that are just wanting me to bend the knee and submit to them without any proof of information or anything. If Sony comes out tomorrow and they're like, here are the fucking numbers, eat it. And I'd be like, shit, I was wrong. Okay, fair enough. Wrong is wrong. They did something that far surpassed what I expected it to be doing. I never said this game wouldn't sell. Go check the tapes. I always said it's going to sell less than what Tsushima's selling across the board. And to me, if it's right where Tsushima is, or as Sony's saying, oh, it's surpassed in a ambiguous timeline that they're not defining, what does that mean? Doesn't tell me that it's blowing doors. That's not good enough. That's what I said from day one. I'm not changing any kind of angle that I had. And notice how people aren't clipping me. They're not saying, oh, look what he said here, because they can't. There's nothing I said that flies in the face of what I'm saying right now at all. He says he doesn't care either way. I find this very interesting, and I cover it because I'm genuinely curious about the direction of it. I've covered this game from when it got announced. Ghost of Tsushima was one of my favorite games of all time, and I was very excited when I heard a sequel was being announced. So as a big fan of a prominent series that was just getting started, I feel like I had a lot personally invested into what the next game was going to be. So, I mean, as someone who was really in love with the first game, I took it personally with the direction they went. And I was like, no, yet another game that does the same shit that all these woke DEI companies keep doing. I don't want to fall into that. Sorry. So don't tell me I don't care either way. I would have been playing Tsushima 2 day one with Jin. I would have been loving that. That would have been what I did with Metroid Prime 4. That's how much I love Tsushima. I wanted to stop everything for that. Anyways, I feel bad for the losers that watch those hack slop videos, fucking waste of space on YouTube servers. To which I said, okay. As opposed to peeps who listen to extremely carefully constructed comments to portray an image to shareholders without technically lying, and then ponies run with it as a factual dunk. You'd be more respected if you just took the loss. Notice how they just want someone to admit they're wrong, even when they're not wrong. This is like the lefty lunatic mantra. It's the cult mentality. Just admit you're wrong. Where am I wrong? All you just want to do is get mad at me, but you won't actually have a conversation about it. And if you do have a conversation, it's going to be Colin Moriarty that completely just talks over me the whole time, changes the direction of what I'm trying to argue, and is super rude the whole time. There's no actually conversation there. That was the problem that I had with that. And if you go back to the clips of that, you can see that I'm making the points that I'm saying right now, and they still hold true right now. The problem was Colin was just talking louder and being a dick to me. And apparently people fell for, oh, since he's being rude to you, he must be right because he's more aggressive. Being a dick doesn't make you right, just makes you a dick. MBG. So it turns out Ghost of Yotei is actually outselling Ghost of Tsushima. For what time frame? They didn't even say. How many has it sold? Why can't they just say that to settle this for everyone, to let us know where it is? Oh, because if they did that, it would prove that I'm actually right. Gotcha. Even with an overall smaller install base, Sony confirmed it during their latest earnings. Tell me you don't know how to read without telling me you don't know how to read. This is, it goes on and on. We had KJN Gamer, boycott officially failed. What boycott? I just said I didn't want to play it with the girl boss. Ghost of Yotei has surpassed Ghost of Tsushima sales in the same period of time. What period of time? They're quoting what she said, but she didn't say what period of time. That's so ambiguous. It doesn't mean anything. It's just because of what she said. If you don't have any context, it proves you right. So you run with it and you're like, this is making me right because it doesn't actually define any walls and barriers. So because of that, everyone else that was hating on this game is wrong. No, miss me with that. These people are clinging so hard to trying to get an own on the chuds, just desperately wishing that Ghost of Yotei is a success to prove their bullshit narrative of pushing the girl boss into these games, which I continue to fall back on, and I'll leave it at this. Even if the game sold as good as Tsushima, that is still a failure. I said that before the game came out. That's my whole approach to this. To me, and people that feel the way about sequels, that understand how sequels work in the entertainment industry, they would consider that a flop. It didn't perform as well as they expected it to. So miss me with the, hey, it's a tentpole game, and because we had nothing else going on that quarter, it carried our sales that quarter. Well, shit, of course it carried your sales that quarter. What did you expect? Some random no-name game to carry the sales that quarter? That doesn't mean anything. Come on. Anyways, I'll leave that there. Oh, Owl Hooty Hoot has the specific date and time. The period of time between November 2nd at 6:37 p.m. and November 3rd at 12:12 a.m. in the state of Iowa by residents with an odd number for their residential addresses, not counting Nintendo games.